If tomorrow starts without me, there's something you should know. While I hold you close, never let you go.
Hello and welcome to The Broken Pack, a podcast focused on giving sibling loss survivors a platform to share their stories and to be heard, something that many sibling loss survivors state that they never have had. Sibling loss is misunderstood. The Broken Pack exists to change that and to support survivors. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Dean. In this episode, I spoke with Earla together with Monica Murphy. She wrote the book Living with Sibling Grief, Imagining a New Way Forward. We spoke about her losing her sister Leigh-Ann, what that has meant for her, what she wants you to know about sibling loss, and where she is today in her grief. Take a listen.
'Cause you never know, you just never know.
Good morning to you. Good afternoon here.
Good morning.
How would you like me to introduce you to our guests?
My name is Earla Legault. I live in Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia. I am from a family of 6. Sadly, my sister passed away almost 12 years ago, and I enjoy living in British Columbia. I am a mother of 2 children and a baba to 5 grandchildren.
Oh, I did read that in the book. Yeah. And rereading your book, I noticed you've had many secondary losses as a result of losing your sister and also
Yes.
her daughter.
Yes.
But before we get to all of the ways that you've become a bereaved sibling, how would you like to introduce Leigh-Ann to us?
This is where I usually cry
Yeah.
because she was my best friend. And we were about 3 years apart in age. And our family went Earla, Bruce, Leigh-Ann, Alan.
Mhm.
And Leigh-Ann was just a really good friend to me. We, of course, as kids do, we used to fight as cat and dog,
Mhm.
really. And thank goodness we got our own bedrooms after a while because it's just the way that siblings are. They're very different, but they're also under the same roof. Leigh-Ann was just really fun-loving. She was quietly witty, I would say. She was taller than me, thinner than me. She was my cheerleader. We were a really good team together. I would say that we raised our children together and we had the mutual friends. We were really quite close, even though she moved to Spain. I was just reflecting on that. When we were into our 20s, we just basically said, we're never going to fight again. And we never did. We were past that.
Yeah.
And we didn't say, I love you very much together. I don't remember that, but she used to always say, you're not going to move away from me, are you? She was the one that kind of really held us close, I think. But yet she was the one that moved away, and good for her. It was her epiphany that took her to Spain, took her to a different part of life. But we really enjoyed each other's company, even though she lived far away.
Yeah. And it's not like she just moved to the neighboring town. She literally moved across the world.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in Vancouver?
No, we were from Saskatchewan. So it's a mid-Canadian prairie province. We lived there. I went to college in the next province over. And Leigh-Ann got married when she was quite young. She was 20. I got married. I was in British Columbia with my husband. And then her and her husband and daughter came to visit us, fell in love with British Columbia. And within 6 months, they had moved here. I would say from our 20s on, we lived in British Columbia.
Mm-hmm. And if I heard you right, with the 4 siblings, it was you as the oldest.
Yes.
And then a brother, and then her, and then another brother.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. What was the age difference?
Well, the 4 of us were born in 5 years, so pretty close in age. After a while, it was like we were all almost the same age because when you're younger, there's quite a difference, an age gap.
Right.
But when you're that close together, it's nobody's the oldest, nobody's the youngest. It's just we're all the same. Leigh-Ann was about 3 years younger than me, but she always looked older and she acted more mature than me.
Would she agreed with that
Oh,
statement?
she would definitely agree. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting about that is you're not the first sibling on the show or in my work to say that the oldest child is perceived to be
Yeah.
younger. That happened with me and my brother
Oh, yeah, is that right?
as well. Like people, unless you grew up with us, people
Mhm.
often thought that I was the older sibling.
So Tony was the older sibling? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But
Okay.
a lot of times people thought the other way around. So
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Same here. Same here.
And I feel like I need to look into the literature to see what that's about.
Oh, for sure.
So twofold, and for our guests that don't know, you have quite an active Instagram following as well, and you have this beautiful book that you wrote with Monica.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with your story, but then we can talk
Okay.
about your book as well. What are you comfortable sharing about losing your sister?
I'm comfortable with everything, Angela. I
Mhm.
might cry a bit, but
Yeah,
it's
that's
only
okay.
because I probably haven't told that part of the story very often. Leigh-Ann, she was living in Spain, having a really wonderful life. Like I said, we still kept in contact. She'd come to Canada every year. I'd go there almost every year or meet up with her somewhere. But she always had stomach troubles. And so she was enjoying life in Spain and she was having the stomach issue. It was really affecting her. She's a real, very sporty girl. So that would be the difference between her and I. And
Mhm.
her playmate at paddle, which is like pickleball, she said, "You got to go see my naturopath." The naturopath found a growth on her pancreas.
Mhm.
And she phoned me and told me this. And I said, "What's a pancreas? And you're going to be okay." I had no
Mm.
idea. Within 24 hours, she and her fiance came to Canada to live with us. And she very soon after got a terminal diagnosis for pancreatic
Mhm.
cancer. And 2 weeks after that, she was told by an oncologist that there was nothing that they could do for it. It had advanced everywhere. So she
Mhm.
said, "Can I do chemo?" And the doctor said, "You'd only have an extra week." So she said, "Forget that." So we really had almost 3 months together of her being sick and just trying to manage the pain and the throwing up and stuff like that. But she was walking probably 2 days before she died.
I think if I remember correctly in the book, you had said that you asked her what metastatic meant, or that was like a new word for you.
Yeah, like I
Um,
I really didn't know much about terminal
mhm.
cancer. I'm not up in the body,
Yeah.
I'm not health wise, and I didn't do the research through Dr. Google. I made that mistake when she phoned me right after I looked it up and it said
Mhm.
the statistics are terrible with pancreatic
Yeah, they
cancer.
are.
I also ran into a friend of mine, Fatu, who was a pharmacist. We had mutual friends. That was another wonderful thing about a
Mhm.
relationship. Fatu said, when I told her about the pancreatic cancer, she just went, and it was just this
Oh.
shock on her face. And I knew it was bad. But we really just lived for those almost 3 months together.
Mhm.
It was the worst of times and it was the best of times. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm glad you read the book, Angela, because there's almost things that I forgot that I put in
Mm.
there. I really did try to be as vulnerable as I could because I wrote the book that I wanted to read. And I was
Mhm.
lucky enough to find Monica. And that's why I'm open to answering any questions because it needs to be talked about more.
So you were her caregiver as well as this role of sister.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Within a week, her daughter, who was a newly graduated RN nurse, came and lived with us. Her and Steve, her fiance, was here too. So our house of two became a house of five.
Uh-huh.
It was the revolving door because, other than family, of course, and a couple of Leanne's friends, it was mainly just our family and the pain management doctor.
Mm.
But yeah, I was definitely, we just said, where it was Steve, Sarah, and I, plus my husband. He ran the household because he comes from a family of 8 and he had 2 siblings die. So he was
Oh.
well aware of what was going on and he loved Leanne as much as everybody else did. So he really
Mhm.
was our grounding person. And I didn't realize how much caregiving can deplete a person. You want to give 2000%, but you also have to think of yourself. And I feel like I did a pretty good job of balancing things until after Leanne died.
My dissertation was on cancer caregiving and distress in cancer caregivers. It's definitely hard. And I just was interviewed with Dr. Christina Zampantella, who coined the
Oh, okay.
term
Yes,
surviving
I know
sibling.
her. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she
I
coined that
mean, I
term
know
back.
of her work. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
the only paper that was really helpful to me when my brother died. And she and I were actually, the podcast was on many things because we know each other and we just talked. But we did spend a good bit of time talking about caregiving and how hard that is. But in our field, there is, I hate to use the word diagnosis, but
Mhm.
because in the US, we often need that to get
Yes.
insurance payment.
Okay. Right.
There is a term called caregiver burden.
hmm
And it doesn't mean that you don't want to be caring
Yeah.
for the person. It just means that it is it's a lot, right? Like it's pretty distressing and hard to do. And then if you add on the sibling relationship, how complicated that must have been for you. You're anticipating her loss. She's anticipating her own death.
Mhm.
And now you're in this caregiving role. That's a long story to say. What was that like?
Well, like I said, it was the best of times and it was worst of times.
Yeah.
I remember actually, I'm a closet writer. I would guess, I would say that this book.
Not so closeted anymore.
No, not anymore. But I honestly, I didn't really realize how much writing meant to me because I think what I have to do is write it out first and then talk about it.
Mhm.
So I remember having a piece of paper in my pocket that I wrote Caregiving 101 because nobody tells you that you either need to bring change or you need to have a credit card to pay for the parking.
Right.
Just little things like that. Have a pillow in the car, have a throw up bucket in the car, put a sign on the door, please be quiet, that Leigh-Ann's sleeping. Like just so many things that you do that you need to do. And I really honestly did call it the learning times because I hadn't learned. And I feel like now that I look back on my life, I was a caregiver. Like my mom said, when I was a year old, I was babying my baby brothers, sort of thing. So it was part of me. But this was, I really made a concerted, intentional effort to make it as best as I could for Leigh-Ann. So in that part, I feel like I found the joy in it too, because we were together. Like when she came off the plane mid-October, 12 years ago, her fiance at the time said, how come you two aren't crying? And we were just happy to be together. We had hope. We didn't know that it was going to be terminal at that time. So now I see the difference between being a caregiver and being a sister. She wanted to be at home. And on our house was her home when she was in Canada. So that's why we all said that we'd make it work as long as we could. The weekend before she died, we had decided on a Friday that it was getting to be too much. We just felt like even her basic care wasn't being looked after because we didn't know any better. And we did have help from the palliative nurses, but it was too much for us. And so we made the decision, but hospice doesn't intake people on the weekend. And also we didn't know if she was going to get to the one closest to us or an hour away, but she died on a Monday morning. So she never got to go to hospice.
So to clarify that, there might be a difference in Canadian care versus US care.
Yes.
Hospice here can happen either in a facility or at home. Is that an option?
Yes,
So
it
she
is.
was choosing to go to a facility, but fortunately her wishes to die at home were met.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We were quite open about stuff like that. We said, Leigh-Ann, yes, be here as long as you can, as long as we can handle it. And by then, she wasn't very communicative because the cancer had gone into her brain. However, we knew her, so we knew that she would be okay with it. Yeah.
I think, and I don't remember exact words in the book, and I don't want to flip through that to find that.
Yeah.
But I think you described this time period as, I don't know, blessing's the right word.
You
but
mean while we were caregiving for her?
yeah, having her for those 3 months, I think you talked about, it was kind of a gift to have her in the home.
For sure.
Right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
We had an experience, her and I, probably 15 years before that when our mom had a heart attack. So we all came within 12 hours. We were with her in Regina, Saskatchewan. And then our brothers went home after a week. Mom was still recuperating for 6 weeks. So we were together for that 6 weeks and we absolutely loved it. Even though our mom was going through getting a pacemaker and we didn't know what her outcome was going to be, we still enjoyed ourselves and had fun together. And I would say that was the same with Leigh-Ann being here during that time. We watched movies. We ate we made the meals that she liked, even though she couldn't eat very much after a while. We made her life totally comfortable. She said, I like classical music now. So that was on all the time. We made it as comfortable as we could for her and showed to ourselves that we can do this. We can do the hard, needful things. That's what I learned because I had a lot of support. I had my husband. We had mutual friends that I could talk to. I had my journal where I used to write. So that was a really good thing. Yeah.
Did you have a chance to tell her goodbye?
No. And I was thinking about that because some people are just so distraught they couldn't say goodbye. We were kind of, I'm not going to say we're strange, but my brother-in-law timed us once. From the time we said goodbye, she was leaving to go skiing or something. By the time she got into the door, it was 22 minutes. we had long goodbyes.
Yeah.
So I think I even call it in the book, those 3 months, it was like a long goodbye. So
Mm,
I just didn't feel like I needed
mhm,
to say that because
mhm,
I think we had the talk about 2 weeks before she died with her daughter. And we said, Leanne said she will come back to us in our hearts
mhm,
when we hold our
mhm,
hands there and in birds.
mhm.
So honestly, I didn't feel the need to say goodbye. Maybe it was where my mind was at. I feel like I totally acknowledged that she died, but to accept, that was really hard. And it
Right.
will always be hard.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
I don't know if I said this in the book, but the 2 nights before she died, we slept together. She actually died in this room on the hide a
Mm.
bed. That used to be hers, but when she moved to Spain, I inherited a bunch of stuff, pre-inherited, I guess. And her and I were laying together, and I just remember thinking about my son and giggling in my head, and she started laughing. So
Oh,
I really felt there was no need for words anymore.
oh,
That was an amazing experience. That was the
mhm.
gift.
Truly
And
connected.
yes, yeah,
Mhm,
yeah. So that's where I didn't feel the need to have to say that goodbye.
mhm. Something that struck me in the book, because as you and most of our listeners probably know at this point, is that my brother died suddenly and unexpectedly in his sleep. And you have a section that you call
Mhm,
sudden death, right?
mhm.
And so
Yeah.
you described losing her as a sudden death. And I remember the first time I read it, I was thrown off a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah,
And it makes sense because this was still unexpected. Can you say
that's
more
right. Yes, I
about that?
can, because again, this is the part where I totally believe in grief education. That's why I want to be open. Is
Hmm.
that I think it's her name is Teresa.
Random.
Yeah, I think she wrote a book called Sudden Death or something
Hmm.
like that. And that's where I read that said if there's a death, like a terminal illness, within 6 months of a diagnosis, then it's deemed sudden. And
Boom.
that's where, and I thought, oh, okay, that's where I feel like it was
Hmm.
sudden. Honestly, we didn't know how long she was going to live. It was kind of one of those funny things. We were in the oncologist's office, Dr. Zed, we can't remember his full name. There was four of us in there, Leanne, Steve, Sarah, her daughter, and I. And he must have said a prognosis, but
Hmm.
none of us could remember. None of us could remember if he said weeks or months. So we just lived as if there wasn't going to be that. So I stand by that. It was
Hmm.
sudden death. Also, I did not know what anticipatory grief meant. I didn't know that. I didn't know I was living through it. I didn't know how I could help myself with it, really. Also, when she's walking around and basically talking a little bit 2 nights before, you don't think it'd be sudden and her life is
Right.
going to be over like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I've talked about this before, and either on this podcast or elsewhere. And I am currently teaching a master's level grief course. And so sometimes I talk about these things and think I've
Yeah.
talked about them on here. But I've talked about this before, in that aside from something like medical aid in dying, we don't know when the person is going to die, right?
Yeah.
So even in that anticipatory period, somebody is terminal like Leanne was, but you have no idea. So it makes perfect sense. In the thanatology world, I don't know that it entirely falls into sudden death, but it purely on a practical level makes sense. This was sudden for you. You thought she was going to be living in Spain for a long
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and that you would have the rest of your lives
That's
together.
right. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is where people say, well, how come sibling grief isn't talked about? Well, I really truly believe because they are our contemporary. They're
Mhm.
usually very close in age.
Mhm.
So you don't expect it. So how can you anticipate it when you don't expect it? I really believe that that's why people do not talk about it. And it wasn't until my niece died. And it's just, what was I expecting that we were
Mhm.
all going to be all on my front porch and we're all going to die at the same time? Well, that was
Right.
like magical thinking. I
Mhm.
didn't think like that way consciously, but unconsciously, I thought we would be together forever. Leanne and Steve might have gotten tired of living in Spain. They would have definitely moved to Harrison Hot Springs because they like
Mhm.
visiting here. So that would have been in the cards for us. I would have gone over there every year, and meet
Mhm.
up somewhere like in France or England to
Yeah.
holiday because we're both retired. So it would have been like the perfect life. You don't anticipate, you don't
Mhm.
see it coming.
Yeah, for sure. Can we talk about family dynamics?
Sure can.
What, if anything, changed? You said she was the glue, so I'm curious what changed in the family.
Yeah, I would say because she was such a calm person, I would say that she was the glue. Also, in our family, because there's 2 boys and 2 girls, so Leanne and I were tight, my 2 brothers are tight. When she died, I didn't have that anymore, and, that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, I moved now because I could see the relationship that my brothers have,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see my relationship with my sister through their eyes because they're really tight.
I wonder if you feel left out or isolated in seeing that.
Yeah, I would say it was funny one time shortly after Leanne died, and I'm positive they reached out because they knew us. And I'd say, no, I don't want to get together. And then one time they were getting together in Victoria. That's where one brother lives. And I just wrote back and said, what am I, chop liver? And they said, no, come on over. So I did. But I had to get over that feeling left out.
Mhm. Yeah. You
The-
had mentioned your mom a few times.
yes. Yeah. My mom
Is
had
she's
dementia. Yeah.
mhm,
So she was, I hate it sounds so harsh to say she was no help, but she couldn't help at all. And our dad had died
mhm,
like 30 years previous.
mhm,
It's funny because I feel like I did get support from my dad. Like when Leanne was dying, our family were big letter writers. We grew up in the time where you thank people in writing
mhm.
and you just,
Right,
how
not a
you
text
connect.
message.
That's right.
Mhm,
My dad was a stamp collector. Excuse me. We were used to seeing lots of mail coming and going. So when Leanne was sick, I actually wrote to him every day. And I said, and he basically said to me, if you show up here, I will help you. So every day for a whole month, I wrote to him and he wrote back to me. And I feel like I got so much support
mhm.
there, like spiritually and emotionally.
Right.
Whereas my mom, she just couldn't do it. There was other dynamics in the family that it just, and she was a retired nurse. She grew up on a farm. I certainly didn't get my grief education from her. So there wasn't the support there. And it's probably where I went elsewhere. I
Mhm,
went looking for somebody who was a lot like my sister, I think.
mhm. And I assume that you're referencing Monica that you wrote the book with.
Monica, yeah. And
Yep.
before Monica, it was a woman that and I like to talk about this too because it was such a good thing. But there's an organization, it was called Cancer Connections, and
Mhm,
a volunteer would phone me every week. And I lived for that 1 hour a week of talking with her
mhm.
because she was a sibling.
I loved when you talked about that in the book. In the work that I do as a psychologist and used to be in a cancer center, we talked about this organization that does similar things in pairing the cancer caregiver with other caregivers. And we would talk about cancer patients being paired with cancer patients. But when you talked about that in the book and that you asserted that you didn't just want someone who understood the cancer, you wanted a sibling who understood.
Yes.
I was retrospectively so proud of you, like reading that, because that's
Yeah.
a hard thing to ask for as
Yes.
either a grieving sibling or grieving person in general. So
Yes.
I'm
And,
proud of you.
at the time, you don't know what you know, or you don't know what you
Right.
need. And they had suggested, do you want somebody who's gone through pancreatic cancer? I said, that doesn't matter to me because honestly, and even I can sit here today and say, I didn't know how I was going to make it. I didn't know how I was going to
Hmm.
live through this. So
Hmm.
I wanted to talk to somebody who lived through it.
Hmm.
And that was a gift. That was an absolute gift before Leanne died and after Leanne died.
Hmm.
I'll always be very, very thankful and grateful for that. I don't know why, but they quit doing it during COVID, when people
Mm,
needed them most. And honestly, she said that she got just as much out of talking to me as I did to her because she got to talk about her sister, Suzanne.
hmm.
So when you're in this, I would say, milieu or our environment now, you and I, and
Hmm.
the people that you work with and teach, we recognize that. We recognize that we
Hmm.
need a peer. And I didn't even know what a peer was until one time Monica and I were talking. I go, hey, we're peers. This is, you're right. I just looked at her as a grief buddy.
Hmm.
There again, another gift. But I guess it's because, like I said, I'm open and I took an educated risk and reached out to somebody who was on Facebook, random person, but had some pretty wise words. And I just trusted. So we almost feel like we were guided to meet each other because it's quite
Hmm.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get to her and the book, I'm curious because you mentioned that your husband also had lost two siblings. What kind of support was he able to give you? through all
Well,
of this?
you know,
And he was
he,
probably grieving Leigh-Ann as well.
yes, he was
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, he definitely was. My husband is, I've described him as a Buddhist monk posing as a retired forestry officer because to me, he's like this calm presence. And he's just a really wise man. He just likes hit. Well, he's well rounded, but he's just a really wise person, and he sees what needs are there. I was just telling somebody the other day that Susan, Leigh-Ann, and Steve and Sarah were here because he was retired, so he's the grocery shopper, and he came home with a carton of toilet paper and a carton of Kleenex because he said we're going to need this, and we both started laughing because we know that we got lots of people and Earl is a crier, so we're going to need that Kleenex. We don't talk about his brothers very much. He comes from a very loving French Canadian family. Family is important to him, and that's why we get along together for 40 some years. But yeah, so he was just really wise. When Leigh-Ann and Steve came to live here, I said, well, should we give them our bedroom because it's on the first floor and they'd have to do the stairs? He goes, no, Earla, we need this calm, quiet place. We don't need to dishevel our whole lives. And it was, and so that kind of wiseness, whereas Earla would have said, oh yeah, you can come stay here or stay in our room and then we'll go
Yeah.
upstairs. But that's just a really excellent showing of the kind of support. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like he's a grounding force for you.
For sure. Yes. Just like my sister was. She was practical. Let's put it that way. Whereas Earla's got 100 ideas. Leigh-Ann has one and let's go for it kind of thing.
Which
Yeah.
you've done a bunch of things that it seems like losing her has created some sort of meaning and purpose in your life.
Yeah.
And I hesitate to use those words, but I think because I don't want that to be misheard as happy that you lost your sister,
Yeah.
because of course you're not. But you've had to live with this loss by creating all of these things. What worked and what didn't work?
What worked? Well, right from the start, I would say tuning into my own nature. So my own nature was writing, drawing, talking to people, being in nature. So I think that was the things that really helped me. And what's funny, even the word coping mechanism doesn't sit well with me, or even that thing about people say, oh, you're healed or whatever. It doesn't sit well with me because I feel like this is my nature and this is what I did to move along. I always had the goal of I wanted to be healthy, happy, and whole. And I knew I would attain health and wholeness just because the way I am, but I didn't know if I was going to be happy or not. And the first time that Monica and I had a huge belly laugh, I just thought, okay, I am going to be happy again. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. And it reminded me very much of the dual process model of grief, where we're like balancing loss and life. And the coping mechanisms, it's a challenging term because in grief, of course, you're still using them, but you're learning to shift between loss and life.
That's right.
It sounds to me like you've found that balance. And of course, sometimes it's harder than others.
Yeah. It is a balance. It's a balance of, I called it the learning times. So you learn what you can, but then also you just have to put everything aside and just be the person that you can be. And that's where I am a joyful person. I love children. I love nature. I love art. So those are the things that I went back to. But I'm 12 years in. I'm not early days. I'm not early weeks or months. I'm not early years. I'm what you call a seasoned sibling now. You asked me what worked. What worked was seeing other people. I think it was 3 years after Leigh-Ann died that I met Monica. And then shortly after her, I put this video together, put it online. And then we met a lady, Sandy, who her sister had died, I think, 3 years previous. She was almost like a mentor to us. We saw that she could have joy in her life, even dealing with family and the in-laws. So that's what worked, I think. That's what worked for me was learning from other people that had gone through it, seeing the empathy. What didn't work is the non-empathetic ways that people could be. You know, unfortunately, that happens in workplaces. It happens in schools. It happens even in your circle of friends. There's things that were not helpful. And I almost felt like they set me back.
Yeah. I want to thank you for that perspective because, as you know, I haven't been terribly active on this platform or on Instagram in the last probably year, a little over a year. And you reached out a few times, and that meant the world to me. Whether it was, I'm going to get tearful as I thank you, because you knew where I was. And we've communicated over the years. And some of the most meaningful messages have come from you. But also, I want to say I appreciate when you'll respond with things like rainbows or the outside, and they remind you of Leigh-Ann. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing her, but also thank you for reaching out.
Yeah, and it's my nature. It is my nature. I think I was cognizant of Tony's time frame. And so 5 years, it really messes with your head.
Sure
And
did.
also, you're a counselor for a living. You're into grief education, and that takes its toll too. And I've seen a few people that are like, I'll tell you about one lady. She wrote the book Four Corners. Her name is Erin. She lives in London, Ontario. She wrote an amazing book. It's just so helpful, supportive of people who are going through sibling loss. No, not that her and I've talked about this, but I recognize in myself how you can get burnt out. I guess it would be a caregiver's burden because now we know what it's like to be a sibling, to live this time, and we want to reach out as much as we can. But we also get burdened with the caring because I think the caring comes with advocacy. And I feel like that's what you're doing. That's why I was so excited to meet you and talk to you because there's not a lot of places that are dedicated to true supportive advocacy for sibling grief. Like you're looking for answers. To me, this is your whole modus operandi is interviewing people and looking for the answers and what can we do in the future to so that people don't feel so alone.
That is largely it. And the feedback has been, right? Like hearing your story, someone's going to relate to your story. And actually, one of our other podcast guests, your story is similar. So I'm going to connect you to, if I can.
Great.
She's from a couple seasons ago. But so thank you for that. And it sounds like the book is also, you're doing that too, right?
Yeah.
So what would you like to say about meeting Monica and the book? And I'll let you go from there.
We corresponded first through Facebook, and then we both don't really like Facebook, so we went to text, and then I dialed her one day accidentally. And honestly, we haven't hung up. That was in 2017. We have not hung up. It was just amazing because her sisters had similar lives, even though Monica's Darcy was older, but they both immigrated to a different country. They're both very lively people in their own way. Both had husbands. I really feel like I learned a lot from her. And also, I didn't realize it, but I really needed to ask somebody questions like, how did you do this? How did you make it? I had so many questions, and she was into answering them and asking her own questions. We still get along really well together. We're actually planning to connect this weekend sometime. She got a new dog, so I got to meet Henry.
Oh.
We know that we won't be each other's sisters because we can't be, but we are sister-like. And well, if you have a good friend, because you didn't have a sister when you're growing up, but there are people in our lives that are sister-like that are, I feel fortunate that I have one that will go shopping with me. I'll have one that will come and sit on the couch with me and hand me the box of Kleenex. And I have one that will distract me. And that's what Monica was. But also I had heard the term grief buddy. And I thought, I want one of those. I saw how it can affect people when you meet the same kind of person who has the same loss. So that's what I wanted. I put it out to the universe and I made a zine about it. And then all of a sudden, what do they say when the teacher comes? So when you really need the buddy. And also I was open to it. I was open to it. So yeah, we both, within a couple of months, we both said that we wanted to write a book, and we said, why not together? We were on the same page because when we did a mind map, we had 90% of it, what we knew we wanted to say. The book is based on the questions that we had of each other. And when we were writing it, we said, let's pose 3 questions each chapter.
I'm going to interrupt you for
Sure.
one moment.
Sure.
Could you tell our listeners the name of the book?
Oh, the name of the book is Living with Sibling Grief, Imagining a Way Forward.
Thank you.
Yeah. We went through a couple of revisions. We said one of the things, and again, it stems from grief education, is say their names. That's the first thing I do now when I meet somebody is I ask the person their sibling's name. And one lady, she said, you're the first person that has asked me that since he died in 1992. That was amazing to hear, but it's true. We do not say their names enough. Anyway, so we worked on the book off and on. Life happened in between. Her mother went into care. My niece got ovarian cancer and she died. So we've gone through a few things together, but we were always there and reaching out and always there. Yeah. I feel very lucky. Yeah.
It sounds like a beautiful friendship and support. And I'm glad that you said sister like.
Yeah.
Growing up, she's still a close friend. We would say that we were like sisters. And she had a sister. And I had another friend who would call my mom, and he was like a brother. But
Yeah.
as soon as Tony died, I was like, nope, we were
Yeah.
friends who are very close. But I like that sister like or brother like term because they can't be replaced. They can't be our sibling, but they can
Yeah,
be
that's right.
close
That's
in a
right.
different way. So thank
Yeah.
you for
Yep.
that word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're welcome. My sister-in-law said Earla Leigh-Ann would have been the one to support you through all this.
Yeah.
You know?
Ironically. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's so ironic.
Do you feel like she's still supporting you?
Oh, for sure. Even this
Mhm.
morning, I thought I've got a cold, so I thought, oh, I hope I don't sneeze my way through meeting you. But I put my hand on my heart and I just took a couple of minutes and just felt like she's still there. And it took 9 days after going to hospice with my niece, and I was 54 and I didn't ever hear about continuing bonds. And I just don't know why that is not talked about more. It's ironic too, because when I had said I was wanting to write a book after Leigh-Ann died, it was going to be all about continuing bonds.
It's a
I still
newer
think.
concept, honestly. It was done
Yeah.
as Kloss,
Yes.
and I think it's 1998 or so that term
You're right. Yeah.
evolved. Grief itself isn't necessarily talked about, as you know, and these newer contemporary theories are so much more helpful than the
Exactly.
original ones. Yeah.
Yes. And the dual process, that is, I remember one time I did because I used to do Instagram lives a lot more, especially at night when most North America is asleep, like, as are my friends. And this lady who's a janitor in a school in London, she gets online with me on Instagram Live and she said, I just don't know. She said, my brother died 6 weeks ago. I'm just so distraught. But she said, I want to go to the show, but I feel like I can't go to the show because then I'll laugh. And I said, you're not going to stop thinking about your brother. I said, you're going to get a reprieve for 2 hours
Right.
to have a good laugh. You deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where, again, that's grief education 101. You have every right to laugh again and find joy and not think about them 24/7 because you are. It's always going to be there. But yeah, I was thinking about when you're saying that you talked to Christine, Dr. Christine with her last name.
Christina Zampatella.
Yep.
Yeah.
Her paper on sibling grief and nature and connecting with them, I believe it's through nature rituals. That meant the world to me. And I read about it. And then when did it happen for me that I looked out the window and I saw, oh, there's a pink and blue sky. That's me and Leigh-Ann. We're together.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know where she is, but we're together. So did that come from me reading Christine's paper? I don't know. Is that just Earla finding the joy? I don't know, but it was just like, so people like her writing that stuff and sharing it, it's all so very helpful. And that's why I think it's super important to talk to our children about it, to really support any kind of grief organization that supports children and especially teenagers, because if siblings are the people who go through grief silently or disenfranchised, teens are just, yeah, they're the young people. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some great organizations doing that. The Dougie Center.
Yes.
I think they're in Portland, Oregon.
Yes.
And then there's a whole slew of them. Right here in Pittsburgh, we have Highmark Caring Place, and they've taken their model and other people have copied it. So there is that work being done. I think sometimes the literature on sibling loss is only the children, which is even those children that grow up to be adults, we're starting to support them in the broken pack because it's needed, right? When I initially set out, it was only going to be adults who lost a sibling as an adult, but it's all adults who have, right? At some point, we'll expand. But in a episode this season, you'll also hear Sarah Woolman, and she wrote a book called Born into Loss. Her sibling died before her.
Okay.
Before her. And so she talks about that, and she works in the grief world as well. But so let's talk about the book a little bit more. What would you like to share about the book?
Well, I'd like to share that I'm happy to hear that you're going to be having authors out, because I'm not saying it takes its toll when you're writing stuff like that, but it is very emotionally hard because we're humans and this isn't the only loss that we're going to experience either. So you're writing this book while life is happening. And things that maybe people might not notice when they pick up the book, that each chapter has a verb. That's how we wanted to do it because grief is an action verb. You're grieving. And so how do you do that? Well, you navigate. So to us, that was really important. It took us 6 years about off and on. I'm trying to get away from apologizing about my artwork because I'm not 100% confident. But Monica insisted. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to fight you on this because if this is what you think, Monica, because even while we were writing the book, I would just send her little doodles and stuff. And one of my favorite is she's got a 2-story house, and downstairs the family's going, "What's mom laughing about?" And then one of the kids says, "Well, she's writing a book about sibling grief." And because I think that's the other thing is that we both are, we find the funny in life. So that's why the comic like pictures in the book. And
I appreciated them.
I mean, like this one here from Alexa.
Yeah.
So this is a navigating family. "Hey, Alexa, can you help me find someone who gets all this and accepts me for who I am and where I'm at in my grief? Because right now I'm sad. I don't need anyone judging me or saying, cheer up. I'm sad. And if I start crying, they don't run away. Oh, Alexa, can you also ensure that they don't make fun of my sister's ugly slippers or talk to me about throwing them out?" And Alexa says, "Okay." Just stuff like that. That came from a conversation with Monica about my ugly slippers that were Leigh-Ann's and I can't throw them out. And the tagline is, "There is always someone who wants to help. Just ask." So the other thing too is because we're not academic people. When people want academia, they can go somewhere else. But ours is, we say it's a lighthearted look at a heavy subject. And also, like in the early days, when I did look for books because I used to work in a library and I totally believe in bibliotherapy. But we wanted a book that just kind of showed that you don't have to say every word. Sometimes it's just the whole world's still doing good, but you're in this dark shadow.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing about the book.
You do not need to apologize for your pictures, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I've since taken it. So funny. After the book, I started taking a drawing class. While I was making it, I took comic making, like through a group in Florida, so online. So that was fun. So it's a different kind of book. It's different than I love The Empty Room. That is that's like the seminal book. And Dawn, who wrote this book,
she's been on the podcast. Yeah.
Yes. And I really appreciated her. I actually interviewed her because I said, I just want to talk to you because your book's so good. So we did that together. And so that's again why I'm so excited about you interviewing other authors, because like right now, I probably have about 12 books specifically about siblings. I would say that I know all 12 of those authors now. Like we've either communicated or I've met them in person. Whether it's a book or a podcast, we have to get the word out. We have to help educate people about grief through any means that we can. And that's why I think even visually with movies or comics, I think it's super important. So we wrote the book. It came out July 3rd. We went through Amazon because it seemed that it was the easiest at the time. And it's an easy way to get the book out. However, bookstores don't buy books on Amazon. We had a very fun book launch 3 weeks later with the woman who ended up designing the book for us. And our editor was there. So there was, I think, about 30 or 40 people. It was so much fun. We danced because that was my vision. Monica, she says, well, what about the cover? I go, I don't care about the cover. I want us to have it dance and call it Darcy's Dance because Darcy used to dance a lot. So it was a celebration and it was wonderful. My cousin Mike from Ireland was here. It was just really a very special time. But we're both tired. We're because we really did the push on every day we talk, we'd connect. And if I wasn't sitting at the desk, we'd be walking because that's a really good way to connect with people. She'd be reading the book, the latest chapter to me, and I'd be making different notes. So we were really tired. And so that's where we haven't really given it the all to get the book out there, to promote it and market it. That's not our purview. I feel like I love doing the Instagram. I started it just for her and I. We did it for a couple of years and then I opened it up. And I really like it now because the other day I had a lady reach out. She was, I'm in my early days and can you give me some suggestions? And I said, it sounds like you're doing things well already because you're looking for help. You're asking. And she was going to therapy and a couple other things. And then I sent her one of my zines called Appointments, and it's about early days and what I did for myself. So
I'll
yeah,
put the link to your zine and all
okay.
of these wonderful things in
Yeah.
the show notes as well.
Can you tell I used to work in a library? Yeah.
Well, I really appreciated all of the resources too that you listed, and thank you for listing the podcast as well. But I did like the variety because not all of resources work for everyone as
Exactly.
much as you and I love books. Not everybody likes to
Exactly.
read. So
Yeah.
you have quite the slew of different types of resources. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes you just don't even know where to look, or you don't even
Mhm.
know the terms. Like, how many of us use the word bereaved in everyday life? I can barely spell it.
I'm
So
weird. I'm like a grief nerd. So
there
I
you go.
do maybe.
Yeah. It's like in the library, if you're to look up a cookbook, you don't look up cookbook, you look up cookery. That's
What?
the key. Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
not.
That was a key word. I think it's changed since then. Well, things change. And that's where it's so important to get the word out. It's so important. And you doing your teaching a master's class in grief education.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
because I'm really passionate that grief should be taught to all counselors because we don't get a lot of that training and that it should be taught appropriately, not based on 5 stages, which is what most therapists and psychologists are taught. And that's unfortunate. So I'm
Still,
on a mission to change that. Yeah.
are you serious? Still?
Uh,
Like, wow. Okay.
those of us that have gone on to pursue further education usually know that people in my classes that I've taught certainly know not to use that. But yeah, there are some around the country and the world. I shouldn't say that as a whole, but yeah, quite a few people don't learn anything.
Yeah. I think we're doing a service to siblings because it's not, we are, like they call it, the disenfranchised grief. Brenda Marshall wrote that excellent thesis, Silent Grief. That was my book. Even though it was a thesis, it was my book, and every page spoke to me. But nowadays, like even in our own compassionate friends, well, in Canada, they don't support adult siblings.
They do here to some extent.
Yes.
It depends on the chapter. And
Yes.
I didn't get involved because when I looked, it looked like it was mostly children. But I've since learned the one locally does actually
Yeah,
support
yeah.
adults.
I got into them during COVID. I got on there online. They have a support group. And now I think, yeah, I talk about it in the book. I started teaching or doing art with people
Mhm.
because that's what was helping me. And yeah, they even gave me an outstanding sibling award last year. So that was
Oh,
really nice.
congratulations.
It was a national conference and they just recognized what I was doing and in the States, not in Canada, because
Mhm.
we don't have that much. Although we do have a monthly online peer support grief group that I co-host with Adam from Vancouver. And yeah, so that's once a month online that we do. And we have a good core group there that really seems to get a lot out of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, we need lots. We can learn from globally. So
Yeah.
I really encourage people to find what fits for them in their nature. People will find
Yeah.
their nature doing the thing that can help advocate for us.
For sure. And I think that it's key to build community versus compete in this space. It's definitely let's bring everybody
Yes.
together.
Yes.
Like I don't need to be the expert or the whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I really see us as collaborating. I include myself in those 12 authors. There is no competition there. We are all collaborating
Right.
because we all have a different viewpoint. Like Dawn's book, she's a psychologist. So
Mhm.
she brings so much to the table. The Empty Room, Elizabeth, she's a researcher. She gives us that historical background. Judy, it's never too late to grieve.
Right.
Let people know that because
Yes.
people think it is. And she really speaks to
Yeah.
that. So that's why I would love to see like a resource hub where 10 to 12 books are there for people because it wasn't there for me and I had to find my own way. Yeah. The one thing is that I did want to give a shout out to my local hospice because
Mhm.
their director of programming, she's a bereaved sibling too. And she got me, she got my humor. I met her through a friend of mine that was dying. She's the one that said, you got to write the book, Earla, that you wish you had. And they've been instrumental too. I think every little bit helps,
Thank you
or
for
every
that.
big bit.
Normally, I ask people what they think would be helpful to know about sibling loss. And you've written that in the book and you've talked about that a lot today. Is there anything else you want to add on that topic?
What would I want people to know? I think it's all unique and we're
Mhm.
not all cookie cutter. It's a case by case basis. You know, some of the things that people have said to me, they didn't realize they were hurtful, but they were. And that's where you have to be the teacher now. And that's why with sibling grief, like a lot of us aren't elderly, we still have lots of time to give, that we want to tell people that it's all unique and that you will get through it. I heard in a documentary that 25% of people who die by suicide are bereaved. That shocked me, but it makes me work even harder. Or, well, people go, oh, it was just a sister or brother. That has been said to me too. You don't get mad. You just take that and learn from it. I never want to judge people. I just want to learn from them. That's what we're doing is people are learning from us because we're coming from a place of, I would say now that you're 5 years plus into it, we're giving back. You've been giving back all along in your podcast, but yeah, we're in this space to give back where siblings in their early days are not. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I do want to say about that, right? There's no timeline in grief. And so it does wax and wane, and over
Yes.
time, it does feel hard and it doesn't actually get easier. I think you learn to live with the grief. So those people that might be listening that are past 5 years or past 20 years and are still feeling like they're struggling, that is also okay, right?
Yeah.
Like your grief comes and goes.
Oh, for
but
sure. It's like the wave. Like tomorrow's going to be better. Like we really know that tomorrow's going to be better. And if it's not better, you found a counselor, you find your nature that will help you. But yeah, I will always miss my sister. I said to Monica, I wish she wasn't so much fun because then I wouldn't miss her. I
You
wish
would.
we didn't get.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier this aversion to healing, right? There's no healing from grief. And I know in my early podcast days, I mentioned healing, and that was before. I regret having said that, but there's no healing in grief. We live with this grief. It's forever. So, yeah. Before I ask you my last question, is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, I feel just really appreciative of being here because it has me thinking back, and I appreciate that. I love being able to tell the stories, like the funny ones and even the sad ones. I can cry, but I can move along, I would say. I don't know. I think you're building a really great creative space for us. And I love the term broken pack because it's just, it says so much. I grew up in a family of 6. We are a good pack, and it does become broken, and that's where I guess the healing part comes in because our wing might be broken, but it can heal and we can still fly. That's, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great segue into my last question for you,
Okay.
which is, what are some of your favorite memories of Leigh-Ann and you?
Oh, Lord, I have so many because I got 51 years, right? My favorite memories, she went back to school to become an administrator. She was quite persnickety about paper and files and stuff like that. I've got so much stuff that I've kept over the years. Even Monica said, yeah, I'm starting to channel Leigh-Ann. I'm getting rid of something as soon as I'm finished with it. So she was always really well organized. And I would say she really accepted me as I am. I probably drove her crazy. I found out last year that I have ADHD. So no wonder she used to say, you've got a million things in your head. How can you handle it? And now I could say, well, I just have one thought at a time, Leigh-Ann. Yeah, I want to look around the room, and we enjoyed each other's children growing up so much. Yeah. And now I still continue that with my friends' kids, watching them grow up. I don't really have one story because I have 51 years of stories. She came home from the hospital, beautiful baby. I thought she was mine. This is my doll. That's not, yeah, I always thought she was mine. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I'm actually going to circle back and ask you one more question.
Sure. Yeah.
You've had a lot of secondary loss, including your niece, who I think you mentioned was one of your last connections to your sister.
That's right.
I know that on the Instagram and in other work that I've done, I've talked a lot about secondary loss because I don't think people realize how impactful that can be. What would you say about your secondary losses and your experiences around that?
Secondary loss is just as devastated as your main loss. But I think in a way, like for me, I learned from my sister dying. I learned how to be a good caregiver. I learned how to listen. So I think it's almost like secondary learning to me instead of secondary loss. That doesn't take away from Sarah's death. It was devastating because at the time her baby first died and then she died 2 months later. And that was sudden thing that happened. Earlier, I was saying it's a case by case basis. people would say to me, "Oh, it must be the same with Sarah that you lost with Leigh-Ann." I said, "No, it wasn't the same at all. With Leigh-Ann, we had no hope that she was getting better. We had hope that we would give her a good life and that at death, there was so much good that came from what we did for Leigh-Ann. But with Sarah, there was no hope because she had ovarian cancer. And you think because they're 35 that they're going to beat it or they're going to, but
Mhm.
she didn't. It's 6 years now that she died. And it's a different type of death because she was my niece, but she was like one of my children too, in a
Right.
way. I think my kids would even say that. She was like the older sister because they grew up with her. I watched her whole life just through the eyes of an adult. So secondary loss, you don't want people to discount it. Oh, you've gone through that first loss, so this one's going to be easier for you. No,
Mhm.
no. If you're going to be lucky enough to be an older person, like that, how I'm shooting for 101, we are going to have losses. Our parents are going to die ahead of us. They're not going to live till they're 150. So, in a way, with the first loss, you learn from that so that you can still find the joy and imagine a way forward. Like in the
Right.
subtitle of our book, you can imagine it, but
Right.
yeah.
And so even from losing those people, then you also lost this expectation, right? That you would have this full life with your sister or with your niece
Yes.
or all of those things. And those are
Yes.
losses. Those are truly
Yes.
secondary losses that we're
Yes.
also grieving, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But then, Angela, it's also like when you were talking about the dual process.
Mm.
Yes, Sarah did die. However, we've done so many, her husband or slash widow, he has a huge musical 2-day event every year in her name. So we get
Mm.
to say her name and tell the Sarah stories. I belong to a group called Teria, which is we support women in West Africa in Mali. We're sponsoring a nurse to go to school. We already
Oh, wow.
there's a nurse who's gone 3 years of training in Africa. She's gone back to where she's from. And now we're doing another one. That was in Sarah's name. We collected funds for that. There's just so many different things. We bought a picnic table in Manning Park that says, "Turn fear into love," because I was so wrecked after my sister died. Now, with my children and my grandchildren, I can speak more to Sarah and our loss. We're still deer in the headlights. We still can't believe it. She was a lively person,
Mhm.
but we are finding the joy. I got an email or text from one of her friends the other day to tell me a grief dream that she had about Sarah.
Mhm.
That's really neat because grief dreams help
Yeah.
people. They bring comfort and you have a connection still. So, yeah, you do go through that loss. If you're able to find what works for you in your nature, then you can imagine that your life's going to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. I like that second learning, I think you called it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's been quite the pleasure to talk to you. I'm so glad I finally got to meet you. I don't know
Yeah.
if this is in person, but not through messaging.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was lovely.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, John. I know that we'll keep in contact and we'll share resources.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the Broken Pack. So thank you for doing this for us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening. Our theme song was written by Joe Millwood and Brian Dean and was performed by Joe Millwood. If you would like more information on The Broken Pack, go to our website, thebrokenpack.com. Be sure to sign up for our newsletter, Wild Grief, to learn about opportunities and receive exclusive information and grieving tips for subscribers. Information on that, our social media, and on our guests can be found in the show notes wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share. Thanks again.
You're second guessing, oh, you never know, you just never know.